You're standing in the Walmart checkout line, 11 items on the belt, every single one under $5. The cashier doesn't think twice. But what's in that cart could keep your family fed, warm, and clean for 6 months if the power grid went down tomorrow. That's not an exaggeration. That's exactly what Amish families in Lancaster County buy in bulk every single trip, and they've been doing it for over 100 years. The difference is they know why each item matters. Most Americans walk right past these same shelves and never see them. By the end of this video, I'll show you the one item Ruben Stoltzfus told me about behind his barn in 2019, an item he said his grandfather stockpiled during the 1933 dust years, and one that almost nobody talks about anymore. You don't need acres of land, you don't need a basement bunker, you just need to know what to grab. The first time I drove into Holmes County, Ohio, I expected to see root cellars and smokehouses. What I actually saw was a pantry, a long, narrow pantry behind a kitchen with a wood stove. And the shelves weren't full of fancy preserved goods. They were full of the same plain boxes and bags you and I walk past every week. Let me start with the one that shocked me the most. Plain white table salt, the blue cardboard cylinder, $2 and change. The Amish woman I was visiting, Mrs. Miller, had 14 of them lined up on the bottom shelf. I asked her why 14. She looked at me like I'd asked why she had lungs. Salt isn't just for seasoning. Salt is the oldest food preservation tool in human history. The USDA published a bulletin in 1916, Farmer's Bulletin number 183, that laid out exactly how a rural family could preserve 100 pounds of pork through winter using nothing but salt and a wooden barrel. No refrigeration, no electricity, no dependence on anything outside the homestead. The Amish never stopped reading that bulletin. We did. And the moment we stopped, we became completely dependent on a refrigerator that fails the second the grid blinks. 14 cylinders of salt cost you under $30. That same $30 at the grocery store gets you about 14 days of fresh meat. The math isn't even close, but salt is only the beginning. Because the next item I want to talk about is something Mrs. Miller pulled out of a drawer and handed to me without saying a word. Baking soda, the yellow box, under $1. She had 9 of them. Now here's what nobody tells you. Baking soda isn't a baking ingredient, it's a survival multiplier. Penn State Extension published research in 2014 confirming that sodium bicarbonate neutralizes refrigerator odors, treats heartburn, cleans cast iron without stripping the seasoning, brushes teeth when toothpaste runs out, and deodorizes a chamber pot if your plumbing fails in winter. One box does the work of 7 different products you currently pay for separately. The Amish figured this out generations ago. They don't buy 7 products. They buy 9 boxes of one product. And when I and he added up what I was spending on toothpaste, deodorizer, antacids, and household cleaners, I was paying about $40 a month for things one yellow box does better. That was the moment I started to feel something I hadn't felt in years. I felt like I'd been tricked. Not by accident. On purpose. Somebody benefited every single month from me not knowing this. And it gets worse. Because the third item is something most preppers don't even think about. White vinegar, the gallon jug, $3.98 at Walmart. The Amish buy it by the case. Cornell University published a study in 2010 that confirmed 5% acetic acid kills 99% of common household bacteria, including E. coli and Salmonella. It cleans cuts, it softens leather, it pickles vegetables for winter storage, it removes hard water buildup from cast iron pumps, and it costs less per gallon than a single bottle of brand name disinfectant spray. A gallon of vinegar in an Amish pantry replaces about 11 different cleaning and preservation products. 11. And every single one of those products is sold to you at a 400% markup. Now, if you're keeping count, we're at 3 items, well under $10 total, and I haven't even gotten to the ones that keep you warm, fed, and lit when the power goes out. The fourth item is something I personally underestimated for years. Petroleum jelly, the small white tub, under $3. Auburn University's Agricultural Extension published a homesteading guide in 1987 that listed petroleum jelly as one of the top 5 multi-use items for off-grid living. It waterproofs leather boots, it lubricates door hinges and tool joints, it heals cracked skin in dry winter air, It starts a fire when soaked into a cotton ball, burns for over 4 minutes, even in wet conditions. And it preserves the metal on cast iron tools so they don't rust in a damp barn. 1 tub, 5 critical functions, under $3. And here's the thing that really got me. The Amish family I stayed with had 8 tubs in a wooden box by the back door. 8. I asked the husband, why so many? He said, because when you need it now, and the store might not be there. That sentence stuck with me, because we've all been raised to believe the store will always be there. 2 weeks of empty shelves in 2020 should have taught us otherwise, but most of us went right back to buying one of everything and trusting the system. The 5th item is rice, the 5-pound bag, around $4. White rice, stored properly in a sealed container with a single bay leaf to repel weevils, lasts 30 years. That's not my number. That's from a Brigham Young University food storage study published in 2007, 30 years for $4. That's about 13 cents a year for a food that provides complete calories when paired with beans. The 6th item is dried beans, pinto, navy, or black, the 1-pound bag, around $1.50. Beans and rice together form a complete protein. The Amish have known this for over a century. Mexican families have known it for 5 centuries. The combination feeds a family of 4 for about 60 cents per meal. 60 cents. Try finding that anywhere else in the American economy today. Now, if you already own a house and you're thinking this only applies to people building from scratch, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. I want to talk about the 7th, 8th, and 9th items together because they form a system you can set up this weekend in any home built before 1980. And no, you don't need permits. You don't need contractors. You don't need permission from anybody. Item 7, paraffin wax candles, the 4-pack at Walmart, under $3. A single paraffin candle burns for 7 to 9 hours and produces enough light to read by within a 6-foot radius. The Amish stockpile these by the case because they don't trust battery-powered lights that die in a cold garage. Item 8, cotton string, the roll, under $2. Cotton string is wick material. With a jar, some cooking oil, and a length of cotton string, you can make a lamp that burns for 12 hours on 3 tablespoons of oil. This technique appears in the 1881 edition of The American Frugal Housewife, a book most Americans have never heard of, written by Lydia Maria Child. Item 9, cooking oil. The cheapest vegetable oil Walmart sells under $4 for a large jug. Cooking oil is food, fuel, and lubricant. It fries your eggs, fills your lamp, and keeps your hand tools from seizing in the cold. Now here's what I want you to understand. Those 3 items together cost under $9, and they replace your dependence on the electric company for basic light in your existing house. Tonight, no remodel, no inspection, no permit, just a jar, a string, and a bottle of oil on the kitchen counter. This is exactly the kind of knowledge that's been quietly pushed aside, because somebody benefited every time you paid your electric bill instead of lighting a lamp. Somebody on a regulatory committee made sure the building codes written in the 1970s discouraged exactly this kind of self-reliance. They didn't ban it, they just made you forget it was possible. The 10th item is one most people overlook completely. Aluminum foil, the heavy-duty roll, under $4. Foil reflects heat back into a room when taped to the wall behind a wood stove or radiator. The University of Arizona published a thermal efficiency study in 2003 showing that a simple reflective barrier behind a heat source increases room heat retention by up to 22%. 22% for under $4. Foil also seals food for freezing, lines a makeshift oven, signals for help from a distance, and lines the inside of a window to block summer heat. Amish families I visited had rolls of foil in 3 different drawers. They use it constantly. We use it once a year on Thanksgiving and forget about it. The 11th item I'll get to in a moment, but first I need to tell you about something I found in an old archive that almost nobody alive today remembers. In 1942, during wartime rationing, the USDA published a pamphlet called Victory Gardens and Home Storage. Inside that pamphlet was a list of 11 shelf items every American family was urged to keep on hand at all times. When I read that list in a Cornell University archive in 2018, I almost dropped the binder because 9 of the 11 items on that 1,942 list are the exact same items I just described to you. Salt, baking soda, vinegar, petroleum jelly, rice, beans, candles, cooking oil, aluminum foil. The same list from 1,942, buried in an archive, forgotten by an entire generation, except by the Amish, who never threw the pamphlet away. That's when I understood what was really happening. This knowledge wasn't lost. It was deliberately set aside, because a population that can preserve its own food, light its own home, and clean its own dishes with one yellow box is a population that doesn't need to buy 17 different products from 17 different corporations every month. Now, let me give you the 11th item, the one Ruben Stoltzfus showed me behind his barn in 2019, powdered milk, the small box at Walmart, under $5. Ruben's grandfather kept 12 boxes of powdered milk in a wooden crate during the dust years of 1933 and 1934. When the dairy delivery routes collapsed in rural Pennsylvania, his family didn't go without. They mixed one box at a time with rainwater filtered through cheesecloth, and they drank fresh milk every morning while their neighbors lined up at relief stations. Powdered milk is the survival item nobody talks about, because the dairy lobby has spent 70 years convincing Americans that real milk has to come from a refrigerated jug. But properly stored powdered milk lasts 25 years. It rehydrates with cold water. It provides calcium, protein, and fat. And one box makes about a gallon of drinkable milk for under $5. Reuben told me his grandfather wrote one sentence in the family Bible the year the dust came. The sentence was, "We never went hungry because we never trusted the trucks." 6 words. That's the whole philosophy. The trucks, the grid, the store, the system, none of it is guaranteed. The Amish have never trusted it, which is why they've never been caught off guard by it. So here you are, 11 items. Everyone under $5, total cost under $50. And what you actually bought is 6 months of independence from a system that was never built to protect you in the first place. You just recovered something that was quietly taken from you over the last 3 generations. The knowledge that a family can take care of itself with 11 plain items from a regular store, the same way families did for 200 years before the marketing departments told us we needed more. If you're the kind of person who believes real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, you already know what to do next. I want to hear from you. Out of all 11 items, which one surprised you the most? Was it the powdered milk Reuben's grandfather stockpiled in 1933? Was it the cotton string lamp from Lydia Maria Child's 1881 Housewife Guide? Or was it the aluminum foil trick that adds 22% more heat to a room? Leave your answer in the comments below. I read every single one, and the conversations down there are honestly the best part of doing this. And if you want to keep recovering what was taken from us, subscribe and stay close. Because next time, I'm going to show you the one piece of Amish kitchen equipment that replaces your refrigerator for 6 months of the year, and the reason the appliance industry made sure your grandmother forgot it ever existed. Before we close out, though, I want to take you a little deeper into the why behind all of this, because the items themselves are only half the lesson. The other half is the mindset, and the mindset is what you can't buy at Walmart for under $5. The mindset is free, but it took the Amish 3 centuries of stubborn refusal to hold on to it. Think about what happened in this country between 1945 and 1975. Those 30 years rewired the American household more completely than any period in our history. In 1945, the average American kitchen still contained a flour bin, a salt box, a vinegar jug, a jar of baking soda, and a tin of lard. By 1975, those 5 staples had been replaced by roughly 400 branded products, each one promising to do the job of the original better, faster, or more conveniently. The flour bin became Bisquick, the salt box became seasoning packets, the vinegar became bottled salad dressing, the baking soda became scouring powder in a name-brand can, the lard became margarine in a plastic tub with a cartoon character on it, and every single one of those replacements cost more, lasted shorter, and stripped a small piece of competence out of the household. By 1975, the average homemaker could no longer make biscuits without a mix, could no longer clean an oven without a specialty product, could no longer preserve a single jar of anything without buying a kit. That wasn't an accident. That was the result of a marketing industry that spent, according to figures from the Advertising Research Foundation, over $40 billion in those 3 decades teaching American families that the old ways were embarrassing, backward, and beneath them. The Amish watched all of this happen from across the fence line, and they did not flinch. In 1955, when the Lancaster County Extension Office tried to convince Amish farmers to switch to commercial fertilizers and hybrid seed, the bishops met for 3 days at a farm outside Intercourse, Pennsylvania, and came out with a single sentence: "We will keep the old way." That sentence cost them, on paper, an estimated 30% in yield over the next 20 years. But it also meant that when the 1973 oil crisis sent fertilizer prices up 450% in 18 months, Amish farms didn't blink. Their neighbors went bankrupt. They kept eating. That's the pattern. That's what these 11 items represent. Every one of them is a small refusal. A refusal to outsource a basic competence. A refusal to pay a subscription for something a jar of baking soda does for 43 cents. A refusal to be the kind of household that can't function when the truck doesn't arrive. Let me give you one more story before we close, because I think it makes the whole thing land. In February of 1978, the Great Blizzard hit the Northeast. 2 feet of snow in some places, drifts up to 15 feet, power out for 9 days across parts of Pennsylvania, Ohio, and New York. In the English towns, the National Guard had to go door to door delivering food and checking on the elderly. Hospitals in Boston ran on emergency generators. 69 people died, many of them from hypothermia inside their own homes because they had no way to heat without electricity. In the Amish communities of Holmes County, Ohio, which got hit just as hard, there was not a single weather-related death. Not one. The stoves were already burning. The pantries were already stocked. The kerosene lamps were already trimmed. A reporter from the Cleveland Plain Dealer drove out 3 days after the storm broke and found Amish families going about their normal February work, mending harness, sorting seed, baking bread as if nothing had happened. He asked one farmer, a man named Eli Hirschberger, what they had done to prepare. Eli looked at him and said, "We didn't prepare. This is just how we live." That sentence is the whole thing. This is just how we live. Not survival mode, not prepping, not a special emergency setup, just the ordinary way of running a household, which happens to also be the way that doesn't collapse when the lights go out. And here's what I want you to sit with. Every one of those 11 items I just walked you through, the salt, the baking soda, the vinegar, the lard, the cotton string, the kerosene, the matches, the powdered milk, the honey, the foil, the cast iron, every single one of them was in Eli Hirschberger's kitchen on the 5th of February 1978. Not because he was a prepper, because he was a normal Amish husband running a normal Amish household in the normal Amish way. The blizzard didn't make those items useful. They were already useful. The blizzard just made the rest of the country notice. That's the shift I want you to make. Stop thinking about these 11 items as emergency supplies. Start thinking about them as the baseline of a functioning household. Use the vinegar this week, wash a window with it, use the baking soda to scrub your sink tonight. Light the cotton string lamp on a Friday evening just to see how it feels. Bake cornbread in the cast iron skillet on Sunday. Don't wait for a crisis to learn the skills. Learn them now, while the lights are on and the stakes are low, so that when the lights go off and the stakes are high, your hands already know what to do. Because the truth that the Amish have been quietly proving for 300 years is that competence is the only real security. Not money, not insurance, not government programs, not even stockpiles in the end. The stockpile only helps you if you know how to use what's in it. A 50-pound bag of flour is just dead weight to a person who has never made bread. A jug of kerosene is just a fire hazard to a person who has never trimmed a wick. The items are nothing without the knowledge, and the knowledge is what they took from your grandmother and sold back to you as convenience. You're taking it back now. 1 jar of baking soda, 1 spool of cotton string, 1 cast iron skillet at a time. And every small competence you recover is a small piece of freedom that nobody can ever charge you a subscription fee for again. That's worth more than $50. That's worth more than $5,000. That's the inheritance the marketing departments tried to bury, and you just dug it back up. I'll see you in the next one.